today we're just going to jump right into it and talk about the Circleville Letters, which happened in Circleville, Ohio in the 70s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she's going to read about it because I've never even heard about this until you said something.
Yeah.
So.
And we figured we would do this one because Circleville is pretty close.
Yeah,
to
where
we live. And I'm so excited because the Circleville Pumpkin Show is happening soon.
Oh, yeah. That's a big hit.
Yes. And Circleville itself is a pretty small town, but the pumpkin show is pretty popular.
Yeah.
I mean, people travel.
Did you know they shut down their schools and everything?
Oh, do they?
For that whole week.
I'm not surprised.
For the whole, I don't know. Does our hometown do that?
The county schools do, yeah.
Man, living in the city.
Yeah.
We don't get that luxury.
Yeah. Well, because people travel, statewide to go. Because they do, people grow, try to grow the biggest pumpkins, and then they win awards. They have the biggest, I'm pretty sure it's the biggest that's ever, the pumpkin pie. Did we go and see that last year? I can't remember if we saw it last year or not.
No.
We'll have to go this year and see it.
I think we missed it.
Yeah.
Is it because I was fashionably late?
Well, it might have been dark by the time we got there last year, and it's in a building, in the business, and they did have the Guinness World Record for it, and it's just a great big pumpkin pie.
See, I did not
know
that. But here I live so close.
Yeah, but even though it's a small town, they still have this thing that's.
Now I knew about the biggest pumpkin and their records for holding the biggest pumpkin. Is that statewide?
I don't know.
Are they the only ones? I think they are. I want to say they are.
Yeah, they probably are.
Because they're the only people that I've ever heard of pumpkin show that really celebrates it.
Yeah. I mean, you could get pumpkin anything. They sell pumpkin burgers.
It's crazy. All their food's
ice
really
cream,
good. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to go.
You could literally get any kind of pumpkin thing that you want. If you're a pumpkin lover, that's the place to go.
Yeah, for sure.
But so this happened in 1976, and the residents of Circleville, Ohio, started receiving letters from an unknown person, and some of the letters contained personal information, and they were either postmarked from Columbus, Ohio, or from Circleville, Ohio. Mary Gillespie, I have no idea if I'm saying that right, but
that's good enough.
She was a school bus driver, and she received a couple of letters accusing her of having an affair with the school superintendent. The writers of the letters said that they had been watching her, they'd been watching her house, and they knew that she had children. Now, at first, she didn't tell her husband, Ron, about the letters, and then he received a letter himself. His letter stated that he needed to stop his wife's affair or that his life would be in danger. 2 weeks later, they get another letter that reads, "You have had 2 weeks and done nothing. Admit the truth and inform the school board. If not, I will broadcast it on CBS, posters, signs, and billboards until the truth comes out." Mary and Ron both thought that the person sending the letters might be someone in their family. Paul Frejor. How would you say that?
Seriously.
Paul, we'll call him Paul. which is Ron's brother-in-law. So they decided to send Paul a letter telling him that he needed to stop. And it seemed to have worked at first, and the letters stopped. But then on August 19th, 1977, Ron gets a phone call from the alleged writer, and the caller said that they were watching him. Ron got upset. He grabbed his gun and he left his house. Then Ron was found dead a short while later. He was in his pickup truck and he had crashed into a tree. Police did find that one bullet had been shot from Ron's gun, but they were never able to figure out, when or where the gun was shot. An autopsy found that Ron's blood alcohol level was 1.5 times the legal limit. So the gun could have been shot at any point.
So, did they think it was, foul play, an accident, or just him running off the road?
I think some people did think it was foul play, but
there was no evidence.
No, there was no evidence, and like I said, they have no. I mean, that the bullet could have been shot out of his gun, a year prior. They had no idea when that bullet went missing from the gun, because they didn't find any evidence that he had just shot it. They just knew that there was one bullet missing from the gun.
Oh, okay.
So who knows when he shot that bullet. And 1.5 times over the legal limit, so he was drunk. Yeah. So it, crashed into a tree, kind of seems like
legit.
Yeah, and if he got a call from the letter writer, he was obviously mad, so he could have been drunk and mad, driving crazy. Mm-hmm. That right there would make for a disaster in itself,
Yeah.
But the accident did not stop the letters. Mary was still receiving them about the alleged affair. Eventually, Mary decided to come clean and admit that she did have an affair with the superintendent. But she alleges that the affair didn't start until after she started receiving the letters.
So...
okay, Mary.
Yeah. So, I guess my question would be, was Mary the only one that is still receiving the letters, or would Ron be still receiving letters too, or did they know about Ron's accident, and that's why Ron stopped receiving letters?
Yeah, I didn't see
Because if they're from Columbus and, back then they put everything in the paper.
Right.
So, that would take a few days, right?
Yeah.
So if they just stopped,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, some of them were postmarked in Circleville too, so the person could have been local.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they could have heard about his accident, because I didn't see that the letters to him continued, only to Mary.
That's interesting.
So, yeah, so they must have known about his accident, I would say. But, yeah, the fact, though, that she says the affair started after receiving the letters, why would you start an affair? That is not believable at all. Why would you start an affair after someone's accusing you?
Because she had guilt and then wanted to justify it, possibly. I'm just assuming.
Yeah.
But since her husband was dead and, this lonely widow, it was just after.
Right.
Well, wait a minute. She alleges that the affair didn't start until after.
Yeah.
So he wasn't even dead yet.
Right. Yeah. She said that she started the affair.
Mary, come on, get it together. Make it make sense.
After the letter started coming saying she was having an affair.
Yeah, I misread that.
Yeah, which doesn't make sense. Someone's going to accuse you of having an affair, and you're like, well, I guess if I'm being accused, I might as well just have an affair then. Yeah,
dear Lord.
Yeah. But even though Mary confessed to the affair, the harassment didn't stop. In February of 1983, Mary had been doing her typical bus route. She started noticing threatening signs placed along the route. One day, Mary decided that she had enough. She got out of the bus and she went to rip one of the signs down. But she discovered that there was a string attached to the sign, which the string was attached to a box. And it was set up this way so that if she opened the box, the string would pull and a gun would go off and essentially shoot her.
How crazy is that? What if just some rando pulled it?
Just opened, like, oh, I wonder what's in this box. And
so wait a minute, was there a gun at each sign?
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't find...
How crazy is it that, well, obviously this person knows a lot, like they said in the letter, like her bus route.
Yeah.
And you're stacking up signs down the street of her bus route.
Yeah, like, whoever this was had extensive vendetta against Mary.
Man, Mary is making some enemies.
Yeah, she really pissed somebody off for sure.
Yikes.
Mary took everything to the police. Police investigated the area, but they didn't find anything that stood out. I saw that they found like a shoe print, but they were never able to determine anything of the shoe print. It could have just been, a random person's shoe print.
Right.
But whoever put the gun in the box did try to sand off the serial number. But thankfully the police were able to get the number, and they traced it back to the owner, which the owner of the gun was Paul Fresh.
It was Paul. It was Paul. It was the brother-in-law.
It was Paul's gun. But Paul claimed that the gun was stolen from him. Police had Paul complete a handwriting test to try to match the letters. And through this test, they determined that the handwriting was close enough that they arrested Paul and charged him with the attempted murder of Mary.
So, do we have pictures of, did they display pictures of Paul's actual writing versus the letters?
No, I couldn't find any of the handwriting samples or anything. I mean, they might be out there somewhere, but...
That would have been nice to see.
The problem with this case is it's known, but it's not it's not a very popular case. It's not because it happened in Circleville, which is such a small area that it's not real widely known, so there's not a ton of...
So probably only Circleville knows about it.
There's not
majority of the people.
Yeah, there's not a ton of pictures and articles and stuff like that. So those pictures could be out there somewhere, but it's stuff that's harder to find. So Paul's trial started on October 24th, 1983. Paul maintained his innocence throughout. His boss actually testified that he was not at work the day of the attempted murder. Paul never took the stand, although it was stated that he did have an alibi for that day. So I'm not sure why he didn't take the stand to testify for that, but he didn't. Police never found any fingerprints on the weapon. They searched his house. They searched everything of his, and they didn't find anything suspicious at his home, his car, nothing. They didn't really find anything. Paul was found guilty and was sentenced to 25 years in prison, and he remained in prison until 1994.
So he was sentenced based on
handwriting alone, and the gun that belonged to him.
I mean, the gun part.
Yeah, the gun is pretty...
So, did he make a report about this gun when it was stolen?
I don't think so.
Paul?
Yeah, not that
Done messed up.
not that I could find. None of the things that I read ever said that he had made a previous report about it. Yeah, if he would have made a report, then and they still probably would have gotten him on it, honestly. But
I don't know. I think if he made a report, then he would have been like, "Hey guys, see, I told you, I made a report. It was stolen. What do you want me to do about it?"
Yeah.
So he might have got without jail time.
Yeah. So even though Paul went to prison, the letters did not stop. They were being sent to Paul, and they were even being sent to the sheriff. Paul received a letter that said, "Now when are you going to believe you aren't going to get out of there? I told you 2 years ago when we set them up, they stay set up. Don't you listen at all." And I guess they thought that Paul was sending these letters, or maybe having somebody send these letters. So at one point,
I was about to say, didn't they monitor
Yeah.
letters back then?
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
I know they do now.
Yeah. Well, so at one point they put Paul into solitary confinement to see if the letters would stop, but they didn't. And I guess they did that because when you're in there, you can't communicate with anybody.
Right.
You can't receive any letters. You can't write any letters.
You were literally in a black hole.
Yeah. So if he was...
So that's interesting.
Yeah, if he was communicating with someone saying, "Hey, write this letter," he wouldn't have been able to do that in there. So, and the letters kept coming even though he was in solitary, so... But, so then a journalist named Martin Yant started to investigate this story, and he found out that another bus driver had seen a man in a yellow El Camino standing where the booby trap was about 20 minutes before Mary found it. And this was years later. I believe this might have been maybe right before Paul got out of prison, or maybe right after even, I'm not sure. And then the popular TV show Unsolved Mysteries did an episode about the Circleville Letters. And they also received a letter from the unknown writer.
We receive lots of mail from our viewers, but one postcard stands out from the rest. In fact, it was a threat designed to keep us from telling this story. It reads, "Forget Circleville, Ohio. If you come to Ohio, you El Sickos will pay." It's signed the Circleville Writer. But we don't scare that easily.
Now, there are a few different theories that have circulated over the years about who could have been the writer of these letters. One of the theories was that the son of the superintendent that Mary had an affair with, they said that he could be writing the letters. Another one was a co-worker who was apparently infatuated with Mary. And then another one was Paul's ex-wife, which would be Ron's sister. And people speculate that the ex-wife's boyfriend was the man seen next to the El Camino, because apparently her boyfriend had a car like that. Which, if he did have a car like that, to me that would be the one that seems the most plausible.
Yeah. That's like a weird ass family.
Yeah, but that's so much work to go through.
Make sure she dies.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah.
Why don't you just tell your brother,
like, hey, she's
this is what's going on. I think you should do something about it. Instead of going to all this, I think this is a little dramatic. Like, first off, who is in Mary's business this much?
Somebody was, for sure.
Somebody liked the drama. Mm-hmm. I mean, small towns and like, come on now. Like, everybody knows everybody in small towns. And you know how drama can be spread, like, wildfire.
Yeah. Well, Circleville is a small town now. And I didn't check, I should have, but I wonder how small it was back in the 70s.
Oh, that's true.
It was probably,
think about that.
Yeah, it was probably extremely small. Because it's pretty small now, so. In the 70s, it was probably very small. So, yeah. Yeah, but there's somebody out there who was not feeling Mary.
Definitely not.
But, and
Mary better check those family members.
she should have admitted about the affair a long time ago, and I don't know. I don't think the letters would have stopped, honestly, because this person was committed.
Yeah.
I don't think they cared whether she admitted to it or not. I mean, even after her husband died, they were still
this person had to have no life.
Yeah.
This had to be their life, because they're always writing.
I mean, and it went from, it started in 76.
And you're writing a bunch of people, not just one person.
Yeah, it started with multiple people in the town, but it really closed in on Mary mainly, but Mary and Ron is who they really closed in on. I think it started with several people. I think obviously Mary was their go-to target from the beginning. They just kind of sprinkled little letters around here and there trying to make it look, So it started in 76, and Paul was sentenced in, 83, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, that's quite a long time, to keep it going, so.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Somebody's off their rocker. And then we have actual pictures of the letters, right?
Yeah.
Some of these letters, which you'll see when we insert them, I feel like some of them are not the same.
The writing looks different almost all the time, I feel like. They disguise their handwriting every time. That's why I don't know how they were able to determine that it was Paul.
Yeah, it almost reminds me one of these letters, actually two of them, remind me of typewriter form, but written. And then the other one is just some sloppy, all capital.
That's why
But it's also funny that, when you look at these letters, some letters are some letters are capitalized in words, and some are lowercase in words.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just everywhere. They really tried to
That's why I think that handwriting thing is crap, because I don't know how they could match Paul.
It's so different. The F's, this F is typewriter form. This one's more like a cursive. Look at the little dots. They even made little dots at their stopping points. The ends would have a dot here, up, so on and so forth.
But that's why I don't feel like it was Paul. It just doesn't seem. The fact that they were going on in prison, and it just doesn't seem.
Yeah, it doesn't seem likely. And then back then, of course, it was different than now, to base it only on writing, depending on how old this kid is. I feel if this kid rode these buses, noticed this bus driver was having an affair with their dad that was in the school, or maybe even seen them exchange something, maybe a kiss or whatever, at the school when that kid was not supposed to.
Yeah.
And knew that, hey, my family's going to be broken up because of this person. The things that was done, I feel are super childish. Yeah. So I can see that childlike behavior continue for years.
Yeah.
Until maybe they're just sick of it. You know what? Screw this. It's done and over with.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that his son did it. I'm just saying I could see something like that
it's a
happening.
plausible theory.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes
It could make sense, yeah.
Yeah. Kind of crazy
Yeah.
history for Circleville.
Yeah,
But-
it is. And just the fact that there was really nothing ever. I mean, yeah, they charged somebody, but that doesn't really mean anything because it doesn't
Yeah,
even
it doesn't
seem
even
likely.
seem like, yeah.
So it makes it more interesting, like that there's nothing happens.
Nothing came of it.
Like, yeah, it just stopped.
Yeah.
So,
And like, there was no murder or anything. Like, nobody died from it, but could have. Like,
yeah.
it was attempted
I mean,
murder
Mary
on
was, yeah.
Mary. Dang.
Yeah,
Mary
no.
had to have been watching her back the rest of her life.
I imagine. I'd have been,
Right.
like, out of Circleville permanently forever.
I've probably been locked up in a padded room.
Yeah.
Like, scared. Like,
Yeah.
somebody's out to get me. Like, every time I turn around. I'd probably be afraid to open my mail. That might be a good excuse to avoid bills, though.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying.
Alright, so that is it for us this week. If you guys have any suggestions, cases you want us to do, comment down below and let us know. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok,
Yes.
Twitter.
If you like our content, make sure you subscribe.
And that is it for us this week. And we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.